Another day, another edition of Midas Letter RAW. Do I look like I caught a suntan this weekend, Ed?
No.
No? I
Well,
don't look
yeah,
a little bit
you
brown?
look a little bit. You look like a little bit of a
little sun-kissed?
Let's see, like a tomato that's starting to ripen.
Like a tomato that's starting. That's green.
No, but it's starting to ripen, so it's starting to turn. Starting to
Still
ripen.
green.
Still no.
Starting.
Well, let's say it's not red yet.
Are you saying that
yellow.
I'm red?
Yellow.
Yellow? What,
Yeah,
like
you're jaundiced.
jaundiced? Like liver failure yellow?
Yeah. Just hey,
Please, say
plug that guy in.
Say that 3 times fast. Liver, yellow, yellow.
Jaune is yellow.
Liver?
Jaundiced is
Jaune.
Jaune.
Jean.
Did you know that?
Jean Chrétien had jaundice?
I've never had it. Never had it.
It's great to see everybody here. It's so
nice
good
to be back.
I've been stuck in the airport system for 22 hours.
Bullshit. Were you there for 22 hours?
Well, I was stuck in the airport system for 22 hours. We're in Miami.
Right.
Our 4:30 flight became 5:30, became 7 o'clock, became 7:30, became 8 o'clock. That's where we pulled the plug, said, get our bags off that goddamn plane, we're going drinking, which is what we did. We went for a fabulous dinner, drank some excellent wine, some grappa, then went back to the hotel at the airport, slept in the hotel at the airport, which I can tell you, after staying at a 5-star event down in South Beach.
5-star?
4-star? No, it was 5-star. We stayed at a 5-star hotel. Points, everybody, points. I'm not independently wealthy here. It's not like trading stocks makes any money. Points. Anyways, long story short,
rather stay at the 5-star.
Airport.
Yeah, what's that like?
That airport was like ramshackle chic. In other words, run down, kind of, dated. Nothing been updated. Nothing had not been renovated.
Did you rent a car?
No, I had no need for renting a car.
So you just stayed in one spot and just...
We took Ubers. Uber's big in Florida. Yeah. South Beach especially. It's like, if you want to wait for a crappy, lowly Uber X, you're going to be waiting for a while. If you're good to go with the Uber XL Lux, boom, you're surrounded by cars. They're there in 30 seconds.
They give you the hook.
They give you the hook.
They say,
look at the guests we got poured in here today.
They just put me up as Brandon Colwell.
Hey, he's not Brandon Colwell. What, they got your lower third wrong?
Well, I wish I was his age.
I bet you wish. I wish you were his age too. No offense, Ed. No, actually, I'm glad you're not your age. I mean, you're not his age.
Okay.
Oh boy. In case you guys are wondering in the control room, some of the guests are out here loitering about, looking slightly confused about what to do next.
Plosky
Milewski.
No, it's Ogorki. Ogorki.
Not Ogorski.
It's no S. No S going to in Ogorki.
We need to redo the lower third.
Jesus, what's going on?
Yes, and also speaking to the control room, and so I'm going to tell you a couple of things that aren't on the menu for today's show that we've had no preamble about. First of all, surprise of surprises. Chris Parry from Equity.Guru is going to join us.
Yes.
We're going to talk about esports. We're going to talk about the Cantech Conference. We're going to talk about some of the ne'er-do-well companies out there, some of the less affluent.
Some of the ones that really haven't cut a bid.
Yeah, the ones that should be sold at market immediately. Hills, run for. Those ones. Those ones. And
Aphria made an attempt to get to fill the gap.
Yeah.
And now it's under 10, I see.
Yes. Yeah.
Much ado.
No, Aphria is Aphria.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's how Vic used to say it. Vic's out. Maybe they are going to change it to Aphria.
No more Vic?
Well, Vic and Coley hit the road. Hit the road, Jack. Don't come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Anyways.
Jesus.
A little bit exuberant, fresh off the sunshine from my parties in Miami, despite having to spend the last one in an airport.
We've had a hell of a run in the S&P, I'll tell you.
Really? I haven't been paying any attention. Yeah. Tell me, break it down for me, Ed. What's going on?
Well,
what's going on in the world?
You know what I got to do here? I got to see, first of all, we were a little late getting buttoned up here.
Yeah. Why was that? I'll tell you why. Because we were listening to a story on extraction services.
Yeah. Looked interesting.
Which sounds like a very interesting opportunity. It's private. They're going public. Gravitas Securities is leading the financing in partnership with Canaccord Genuity. Maybe it's the other way around. We don't know. We don't care. But I'll tell you, one of the more impressive CEOs that I've spoken to in the
You seem young guy, but I'm telling you, I had to stop him and say, hey, like, how many did you?
Oh, clearly you don't stutter.
This guy was good.
Yeah.
Didn't you think?
No, that's why I was like, I thought there's no way we're going to get the story out of this guy in the 18 minutes we got before we go on the show. And boom,
I'm going to follow up with that. I want to hear more.
Yeah, me too. I did take a look at the financing, which I think is at $1 something. Financing price units, $1.10. And well, you know, if I'm not in at the 5 and 10 cent round, I have a hard time jumping in at above $1.
I know, but what's the market? Like, this question I would say is sometimes, you know, if the market cap's still only 10 or 15 million, then it's.
Yeah, well, that's true.
That's just it.
Well,
okay.
I paid $9.45 for.
Can we just throw up the chart? This chart here,
S&P.
It's taken me a while to get here.
Wow.
Okay, Okay. So this is what they're talking about. This is the big line of decline. That
line of decline.
Yeah.
Did you invent that?
Yeah, I just did. Now I'm not gonna. This isn't. Oh, look at this penmanship. Look at.
Oh. All right.
Now this isn't exact, but if you took a ruler and did it, it looks like today's action is through the line, and it does. You know, just because it goes through one day, but it's starting to make people think that this market is going a lot higher. Okay, and it, you know, look at this, right? And then this, and it looked like
you're drawing your kitten's face again. There we go.
So let's watch this because it's talked about by a lot of technicians.
Okay.
And I'm jumping on the bandwagon. That line of decline.
So you become a believer. You were a skeptic last week.
Well, I listen. One thing about technical analysis, don't be rigid. Don't be obtuse. Let's be
fair.
Let's open-minded.
Flexible.
Open-minded.
Anyways, we've got a hell of a show coming up today, as per usual. My first guest, shortly after, this is actually going to be, she's on, actually that's interesting. He's on exactly the same time as the news. I'm not even going to try to guess which is going to go first, but I'll bet you it's going to be Jesse Dillon is here. He's the CEO of Good Life Networks, is my guest. And headline news will be right after that at 3:15. Taz Turner, the CEO of CordovaCann Corp, will be here. And as usual, we'd love you to post your questions in the comments section of the YouTube channel, and we will answer them as we can. Then at 3:30, Robert Galarza is here, BLOCKStrain Technology CEO. I saw him speaking earlier at the Cantech Conference. 3:45, our man, Anthony Durkacz from First Republic Capital, the man behind FSD Pharma, the man behind so many money-making opportunities, it's insane. 4:05, Chris Miller will be here from Koios Beverage Corp, CEO, and Ed and I will be breaking down charts as per usual. But now, live from the capital of Canada, at least the economic capital, is Jesse Dillon, CEO of Good Life Networks.
I'm home, James.
It's been a while, Jesse.
I have been on Bowen Island searching every night for you, and I can't find you.
High and low?
Here you are in Toronto.
I have not been on Bowen Island in 3 years.
It misses you.
I'm sure it does.
There was a beacon somewhere on a hill on Bowen, and on any night you could hear James.
You probably could have back in 2013-12, but I moved here 4 years ago, actually.
You loving it?
No, I pretty much tolerate it. You know, the weather, just one great example. The shootings, the killings, the knifings, the stabbings, the
There's a song in there.
There is.
And killings and knifings and stabbings. You gotta.
I'm with you.
Dusty Springfield.
Yeah, okay, I was thinking Snoop Dogg.
Snoop Dogg's good.
We see a lot of him lately. He's hurling his ass out all over the canopy space.
I lived here in Toronto for many years.
Did you?
I did a morning radio show here at Q107. Jesse and Jean.
Jesse and Jean in the morning. I listened to it as a child.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I was a child.
I'm not your dad.
No, I felt like a child up until I was about 28.
Yeah.
So that was great.
Congratulations on your success. This is a great show.
Thank you. Tell us about Good Life Networks. Now, this is a company that has evolved so quickly and so forcefully from where I first became aware of it a few years ago that when somebody sent me the deck, I was like, if I hadn't seen your name attached to it, I would have thought, this can't be the same Good Life Networks.
Well, you know, years ago when I did the morning show in Toronto, I would get off the air at 9 o'clock in the morning. There was no one to play with. So I started negotiating deals and building companies. And built a few companies, sold a few companies, and taken a couple of companies public. A friend of mine told me that the future of advertising, and what I used to do in broadcasting for years, was all tied to advertising. A pal told me that the future of advertising was ad tech. We made a pivot with Good Life Networks. We were a different company when you saw us 4 or 5 years ago.
Yep.
We were a digital advertising agency. We pivoted into ad tech in 2016. I bought a technology platform from London, England, very sophisticated, Video Exchange. We did $2.5 million in 2016, $10 million in 2017. Our trailing Q3 revenues from 2018, James, $40.2 million on $7.7 million EBITDA. We just received Scotiabank financing at prime plus 1.25, and I would suggest we're probably the only microcap company in all of last year that received bank financing at prime plus 1.25.
Yeah, no,
and
that's
they do an
impressive.
awful lot of due diligence.
Sure.
They like the story.
So tell me, how do you make money in programmatic advertising?
Well, we're a matchmaker, so there's thousands of companies in digital advertising. It's a big business. There's $750 billion that floats around the planet every year. We're specifically in programmatic. So some genius some years ago took program and automatic and said, let's call it programmatic.
Wow.
You and I would have done better.
That's right. Shorten it up a little, but whatever, this is what we've got.
So instead of being a demand side platform or a supply side platform, publishers and advertisers, we're actually the exchange that sits in the middle and connects them. RTB, real-time bidding. So Ford might come into our system and say, I'm looking for men 18 to 49 in the GTA area. We might say we have them here, and it might be ESPN or Fox or TSN. We connect them. We set our margins for the day at 40%. If they meet our margins, we take the bid, shake hands, and as you're opening up your iPad that night to get the scores or the stock report, and there's a little video commercial that plays before your program starts, that's probably us putting the video commercial in front of you.
All this happens automatically?
10
through
milliseconds.
computers? Wow.
In 10 milliseconds.
Wow.
It takes 300 milliseconds to blink your eye.
And I saw that you were projecting 2019 revenue of 67 million?
Yeah, north of 60 million.
North of 60 million.
Correct.
That's a really rapid growth trajectory. So
It
the
is.
pivot to programmatic advertising was clearly the right one.
Yes.
Right.
That was good.
Interesting. So who are your clients?
Roku, Google,
Oh, really?
Verizon,
Big names.
AOL. Yeah.
Wow.
Big
Incredible.
companies.
So who are your competitors?
You know, I would say Acuity Ads is a competitor, but they're more of a demand-side platform. We're the actual exchange that sits in the middle. AppNexus was one of our competitors. They were an exchange. They were doing about 130 million US a year. 2 months ago, AT&T bought them for 1.6 billion. Trade Desk would be one of our competitors. I think their market cap is 7 billion. Their share price has gone up from $74 a share a year ago to $130 a share. They're trading at 85 times EBITDA based on the strength and the growth of CTV, connected television. We just bought a company in Los Angeles that specializes in connected television. That's a new lane for us to be in. By the way, we're trading at 2 times EBITDA on 40 million Q3 trailing, 7.7 million EBITDA. We're trading at 2 times. Anybody, any mean company in our peer is trading at least 10 times EBITDA. We think we're highly undervalued, and we're starting to get some visibility. Our goal, James, was just to execute, get the numbers up, and eventually the share price would start to respond. Make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense to me. It strikes me that the market has probably not, because, I mean, you don't hear about this kind of a story every day in the Canadian context. It's usually big ad companies, big technology, all in the U.S. So this is intriguing, and it sounds like the market just hasn't caught up to what the potential possibility might be.
Well, you know, we've been on the road for a couple of conferences. We were at Alpha North in the Bahamas recently, and here at Cantech. And we think we're starting to see some visibility. We're starting to get some research. Yesterday, we had 4.2 million shares trade. We were up 17%, so volumes are picking up. We've actually had, on average, about 500,000 shares trade a day. GMP took us public a year ago. We did just about a $10 million financing.
Okay.
And I think it's taken us, 4 quarters of reporting to finally start seeing some respect, and I think we're starting to notice that.
Sure. What are the catalysts that are going to occur in 2019 to get you over that $60 million revenue?
That $60 million revenue at this point in time, the catalyst for that were the last 2 acquisitions we did. Our own organic growth, which is strong, and 2 very key acquisitions, both from California. Hence, we didn't want to go to the market and do an equity raise. It would have been too dilutive to shareholders and not fair.
Yeah.
So we took bank financing at prime plus 1.25. Great group, Scotiabank.
Yeah.
Those two acquisitions will go onto our platform, our proprietary patent-pending video exchange. Will ramp their margins much higher than they could on their own. They've been outsourcing and running other people's platforms. Now they have their own GLNs. Those companies are ImpressionX and 495. Their growth and our growth organically will equal 60 million plus. I may, if one floats by our window, and we're looking at a few and have been for a year, another acquisition, we may bring on board a big chunk of revenue from another strategic acquisition.
So that's your growth strategy, growth through acquisition?
Growth through organic growth, which has been strong. Those numbers I gave you before were mostly organic.
Okay.
And then recently acquisitions. Now that we have a certain level of visibility in the marketplace, we're seeing some very good deal flow. And the terms that we acquire as a company, I think you would find attractive.
Yeah.
For instance, would you like to hear one?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
Good to see you, man. It's been a long time.
It has.
ImpressionX.
Okay.
It's a connected television company.
Right.
So just to reiterate, people all over the world are buying smart TVs.
Yes.
And unplugging from cable.
I've got one myself in my living room.
They can listen to you as well.
Well, I'm not too comfortable
Everything
with that.
can listen to you. That's another thing that we don't do, personally identifiable information. The Cambridge Analytica scandal, Facebook, just voted one of the most hated companies in North America.
Right.
We don't do PII. Ours, artificial intelligence, doesn't use personal information. The metrics that we acquired ImpressionX by were, they will do 6 to 10 million US min-max this year, ImpressionX, connected TV. We gave them a $4.5 million valuation, a third, and a third. I gave them $500,000 cash. They can earn another $1 million for hitting performance benchmarks over a year. So in essence, we're paying them with their own cash. And they can earn up to $3 million in warrants. They can't be exercised for 2 years for hitting performance benchmarks on a quarterly basis. In any quarter where they don't hit their metrics, they don't get the warrants or the cash.
There's incentive.
and it's relatively non-dilutive.
Yeah.
495 was a bigger acquisition, but the same metrics.
You bet. All right, Jesse, that's a great introduction to the company. The company trades on the TSX, the CSE?
TSXV.
TSXV.
Under the symbol GOOD.
Good. Oh, that's.
And we're in Frankfurt as well.
Okay, cool. We're going to come back to you in the near future and get more on that story. We're going to follow it closely. I've got coming up next is going to be Ricky Gerwitz is going to read some news for us.
Thanks, James, and here are the headlines moving markets today. A joint venture between Dixie Brands and Chiron Life Sciences is bringing a portfolio of cannabis-infused products to Latin America and Chiron's Cuida cosmeceutical brand to the federally legal U.S. CBD cosmetic market. The letter of intent adds 100 product SKUs across 15 categories immediately available to commercialize into Latin American pharmacies and retail outlets. By combining Dixie's market-ready portfolio of cannabis-infused products with Chiron's established footprint throughout Latin America, the companies hope to capture first-mover advantage. Origin House has agreed to provide additional strategic financing of $750,000 US to Utopia Cannabis, a California-based cannabis brand. The funds have been advanced towards the purchase of Utopia-branded manufactured products, including cannabis flower, concentrate, edibles, and PAX pods. Origin House's distribution subsidiary, RVR Distribution, has been the distributor for Utopia-branded jarred extracts and edibles since February 2016. Emerald Health Therapeutics Inc. announced that its wholly owned subsidiary, Verdilite Sciences Inc., has entered into a release, discharge, and transaction agreement settling all claims made by Pivot Pharmaceuticals Inc. against Verdilite and its former shareholders. Verdilite operates a 75,000 square foot indoor cannabis cultivation facility in Saint Eustache, Quebec. The claims relate to a non-binding letter of intent, and that is what Verdilite and its former shareholders had previously entered into with Pivot with respect to a potential sale of the company. Pursuant to the settlement, all claims against Verdilite have been discharged without the company making any payment or providing any compensation to Pivot. High Tide Inc. has announced that it has signed letters of intent to acquire 2 cannabis retail locations in Saskatchewan from 2 separate vendors. The company expects each transaction to be closed by the end of February and will continue to pursue additional acquisition opportunities in the province. OnWave Corporation has signed a royalty-bearing commercial sublicense with Your Wasabi Farms Limited, an existing royalty partner of OnWave. The agreement grants YWF the right to use the company's proprietary radiant energy vacuum dehydration technology to dry cannabis plant material, enabling YWF to dry industrial hemp in Canada. BeeVT Incorporated announced that its wholly owned subsidiary, Natural Medco Limited, has entered into a binding, non-exclusive supply agreement for the sale of dried cannabis to a German importer and distributor of pharmaceutical and medicinal products for an initial term of 3 years. The German distributor has agreed to purchase the minimum of 2,250 kilograms of dried cannabis over the initial 2-year period and can increase the amount ordered on the acceptance by BeeVT. The parties expect the first shipments to commence in Q1 2019. Hampton Holdings Corp announced that it has filed its consolidated, unaudited financial statements for the quarter ending November 30th, 2018. Liquidity remains strong with over $9 million in cash as of November 30th, 2018. On October 3rd, 2018, Hampton announced that it had secured 7 megawatts of power for its Coachella Grow facility. On November 12th, 2018, the company completed the acquisition of Mojave Jane, a California licensed manufacturer of cannabis extracts and concentrates for the California markets. And that's your news for today.
Thank you, news nurse Chris Parry. Next, we've got on our show, joining us live via Skype, Taz Turner, the CEO of CordovaCann Corp, is joining me. Taz, how are you today?
Great, how you doing?
I am well, thank you. Taz, can we start with an overview of what CordovaCann does?
Sure, so at Cordova, we're really driving at what we think is the holy grail of cannabis, and that's delivering products with predictable effects. And what we do is we overlay our technology platform, and that technology allows us to deconstruct the cannabis plant into the individual isolated cannabinoids. We can isolate over 130 cannabinoids today, and then we take those cannabinoids and put them into recipes or specific formulations to create end products. We can then test those end products for the efficacy of those products, and then obviously deliver them to the consumer base that we have.
Oh, interesting. Okay, and so where is your growth focused?
So we focused initially on the Western U.S. So we have an operation in Oregon, as well as a small operation in Colorado, and then we'll be moving into California and Washington in the next 30 days. We've secured those operations, and we'll close them shortly.
Sure. All right. So tell me, who are your biggest customers potentially, and who are your biggest competitors?
I mean, I think from a customer standpoint, we're really looking at both the traditional customer that's out there today. Obviously, we feel like the West Coast customers in the U.S. are some of the most sophisticated customers out there. They've been exposed to the product from a legal standpoint for the longest time, and therefore, we feel like they have certainly a more sophisticated palate in terms of just discerning what's the good stuff versus the maybe not so good stuff. So we're starting there because we feel like our products have a good take rate there, and then certainly we'll focus and move east as well as international in due course.
Mm-hmm. All right, then. So are you guys going to stay focused on the U.S.?
I think in the short term, you'll mostly see us make moves in the U.S., but we also have a option on a pending licensed producer in Ontario, and we're starting to build that out. And then once that is built out and approved by Health Canada, we'll continue to build that out to greater scale, and then use that to not only serve Canada, but more importantly, serve international operations.
Okay, interesting. Where do you guys source your capital?
Currently, to date, we've raised capital internally, so we've raised it, but you'll see us, we'll be making moves to do more public financings in the not too distant future.
Right. All right. What's your sort of target market globally? What's the size of it?
I mean, the target market is massive. I mean, California in and of itself, there's enough to tackle there for the next few years. But that said, it's billions and billions of dollars. Certainly, people have put the numbers on the market that are all over the map. I continue to think they're probably even underestimated because of just the number of new consumers that'll come online, not just in the US, but globally.
Right, right. Okay, so tell me, Taz, what are the big catalysts you're looking for in 2019 that are going to drive the stock price?
Yeah, so you'll see us really ramp our California operation as well as expand our Washington operation. And then also we are about to finish up our expansion in the Oregon market as well. So you'll see a total vertically integrated play in Oregon. And so, you know, I think the catalysts are showing the completion of all of those projects. And then you'll see, you know, significant revenue coming off of out of each of those jurisdictions. Then I think over the more medium term, you'll see us finish up the Canadian operation and get that licensed and start moving internationally. So I think those are kind of the things over 2019 that I think will really start moving the stock.
Sounds like a master plan. So who owns all of the shares of the company currently? Where are the biggest shareholders? Where are the biggest blocks?
I'd say it's owned about 50-50 Canada-US currently. Certainly, you know, the management team owns a significant share. I'd say somewhere in the neighborhood of about 25 to 30% of the company. And then the remaining shares are from the shareholders that we've brought in over the last 12 to 15 months. And, you know, we'll continue to expand that shareholder base both in Canada and the US.
All right. Interesting stuff, Taz. We're going to come back to you as the story develops. Thanks very much for joining me today.
I really appreciate you having me. Thanks so much.
Coming up, new technology is taking on the pesticide industry to bring healthier food at a lower cost. Check it out.
We're developing an innovative, disruptive technology for farmers that allow them to increase the marketability and profitability, therefore, of their crops. And what's really cool about this is that not only do we put more money in the farmers' pockets, but it's also an environmentally sustainable and responsible way that they can reduce the impact of their farming operation on the planet. We can reduce the amount of water that the farmers use and very specifically reduce their reliance on synthetic chemicals. So we can actually replace synthetic pesticides through the use of this technology, and that's something that we all benefit from because we'll get healthier, cleaner food as a result. What bees do naturally is the reason they're such good pollinators is because the flower of a crop is actually their food source, right? So they'll forage, they'll fly between their hive, they'll go to the flower and they'll bring back nectar or pollen, and through that process, as they're visiting and foraging the flower, they end up pollinating the crop. Through that same natural process with BeeVT, now what they do is when they leave the hive, they also carry the biological treatment. So if you will, they carry a payload as they leave the hive, visit the flower, and then they deposit that payload on the flower, which then protects the crop. And then when they come back, they bring the pollen back. So that's kind of the natural system that they're already doing. The difference between what we do with BeeVT is that additional biocontrol agent carrying that they do when they leave the hives. So a farmer may get a certain benefit because they get a better pollinated crop. That's what they would normally do. But now, in addition to that, they get a crop protection effect, which then means that they can reduce their reliance on synthetic chemicals. Our microbe is a beneficial fungus. It's a naturally occurring microbe that was isolated from the soils here in Ontario, actually, and was then developed specifically because of its unique properties that are beneficial and symbiotic with a plant. And so what it actually does is it colonizes the plant and it protects that plant against bad pathogens, against diseases, and makes the crop that much healthier. This is a really disruptive technology, and you know, I've been developing systems for biological control over the last 10 years. This is really something that is unique in the world. And it's taken a while. It's something that we have to, you know, prove year in, year out, season in, season out, crop by crop. But what's great is as we check these boxes, we're creating competitive barriers. So what we will, when we emerge at the other end, we'll have a really protected business with an incredible growth prospect.
Oh, and we're back, and my guest right now, far from across the country, he is the chief editor, proprietor, and publisher, chief cook and bottle washer of all things Equity.Guru. Chris, welcome back.
How's it going?
It's going fantastically. We have been observing from across the country, like from our various positions across the country, the unfolding of the cannabis market. You and I have both, we've been in some deals together. We have been on opposite sides of the opinion ladder.
Boy, have we.
A couple of things. Yet we remain friends. Why is that?
Because you wear the Parker Lewis Can't Lose shirts, and I appreciate that about you.
I see. Well, I'm going to have to send you my tailor then, aren't I? No, so you were down at the Cantech Conference.
It's okay to disagree with each other because our opinions are based on due diligence, and that doesn't have to be black or white.
Well, yours aren't. Mine are just based on who's paying me. No, just kidding. That's a joke I've been wanting to make for years. You just came from the Cantech Conference.
Yep.
What did you see down there that you liked?
Oh, man. So the buzzword is esports. Everyone's looking for where they can put their money in esports. And I guess the title of my keynote was, don't make the same mistakes you made in blockchain in esports, you rubes.
You rubes. Well, in case anybody's wondering who that refers to, that's you.
Let's just not be effing idiots about things, right? Like we were last year.
Right.
Look, the cannabis industry had this moment in 2014 where everyone was high on cannabis, no pun intended, but didn't really know what they were going to do with it all. And eventually there was an industry. Blockchain, same thing. Eventually there was an industry. Lithium and cobalt had their moments. They've gone away now, but eventually there'll be an industry. And esports is going to be the same thing. There'll be lots of money made on lots of really shitty deals that have no real business attached to them. And then there'll be lots of money lost. And in amongst that, there'll be some real companies that will actually extend out the
Sure.
inside.
I plan to lose some money in esports.
I'm going to lose a lot of money in esports. I've actually already lost a lot of money in esports. My kids spent $6,000 on my credit card on in-game purchases, individually one another.
Without telling
at
you?
the same time.
Oh, wow.
$1,500 by my daughter, $4,500 by my...
Jeez, you really got to keep better your credit cards.
They're doing 600 hours of community service in the backyard as a result.
Yeah, the community service.
When you lose that much money on something, the first thought is, I'm going to kill them. The second thought is, how do I get on the other end of that?
Sure. The esports thing is interesting to me because I had a young fellow start to DM me on Twitter about
we don't want to talk about that, James.
Well, this is interesting. No, that didn't go anywhere. However, he had this idea. He was trying to get me to fund his esports team. And at that point, I said, well, what is esports? Right. I had not heard of it at that point. And he explains to me that he has got a bunch of young guys who are proficient competitors at various video games, and that some of the video game producers had started to put up big purses, and he had created a business where he was basically putting these teams together, giving them a living wage, which for a 14 to 17-year-old kid is almost a nirvana from heaven. Yeah. And manna from heaven. Somebody pointed out that I was mixing that metaphor. Anyways, and I said, so great, that sounds great. What size purses are you winning? He said, well, the biggest one coming up this year is going to be $55,000. And I'm like, that's not really the essence of a public company. Yeah. So then I had a conversation actually on the weekend down in the southern United States with a gentleman who's probably one of the more prolific promoters in the street, and he told me about a deal where he was going to partner up with one of the major franchises in professional motorsports, and he laid out a sort of a business model that made perfect sense and sounded like it could be worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Just like blockchain.
Well, just like blockchain, I never bought into, because blockchain to me, the fallacy was...
But you missed out on so much money on the way up.
I did, but my objective is always to buy low and sell a little lower. So blockchain just didn't meet that because the stocks were all going too high.
Right.
But the esports thing, show me a business model that I can wrap my head around that doesn't base itself on the idea that if you can program something and explain it to me in such a complicated way that I have zero hope of understanding it, and that's worth billions of dollars, I'm out. Right. But if you can explain it to me in a way that makes total sense and actually, you know, something that a simpleton like I can wrap my head around, then I'm in. So right. I'm on the fence about esports, and I want to ask you, is there any esports company that you can talk to that's publicly traded that looks like a winner? There's a couple. Of the literal dozens that are floating around, there are certain ones that I would not touch. There was one I heard about recently where they were planning to set up a gambling operation on esports, and the last thing I can think of I want to put $100 on is an Eastern European 15-year-old playing Fortnite, not throwing a game. That doesn't seem like a lot of sense to me. To me, owning the games themselves is where the money's at. If I own Fortnite, then I get to sell the franchises, and I get to run the tournaments, and I get to put sponsors in the game. So the way to play esports is to buy the publishers of the game? Yeah, like if you're running a team and you put a sponsor on someone's sleeve, that's not making you anywhere near as much money as if the sponsor is in the game itself, or if it's running an ad in the middle of the tournament that you don't run. So that's my one problem with the let's build teams for esports model. The second one is you're holding 15-year-olds to contracts. I don't know about you, but any 15-year-old I've ever met, the drama quotient is extremely high. So when you're going into a world championship and suddenly the 15-year-old says, look, I've got exams. Right. I can't come. Right. Now you got to go find another 15-year-old. You know, like they have drama, they get toxic with each other, they're in and out. They do drugs, they shoot each other, they bang each other. Right. It's all terrible business. All these horrible things like, those rotten kids do that we never did. It's like House Street all over again. Right. So we do that now when we're adults. I don't want to be holding 15-year-olds to contracts and expecting them to behave like 25-year-old professional athletes. Sure. The other side of it is, we're going to run tournaments. It's going to be great. We're going to have tournaments all over. There's 100 tournaments out there and 100 games out there. And the only ones that really have the massive audience and prize money are Dota 2, which fills stadiums, and League of Legends, which fills stadiums. As you get down the levels there's a whole lot of games that have an audience and people will watch. But there's no real great, like, we must have. It's like if someone said to you, I'm starting an arena football team. You'd be like, why? Yeah. If you win the whole thing, maybe you win 50 grand, and that's where we are with esports. Right, right. Well, so I just say to people, how many professional sports franchises are publicly traded? Right. and there's your answer as to the value proposition for some esports models. And the vast majority of professional esports teams that are even recognizable are funded by retired NBA players or actors or people who've got a lot of disposable income. I could have put it back to the 1980s when professional wrestling suddenly became a big thing. Yeah. And there are 100 money marks out there who are like, I'm going to recreate the WWF. It's going to be great. And they all lost their money because they didn't actually know how to compete with someone who has a broadcast deal and a sales force and owns all the talent. So to me, that whole team structure side of things, there's a couple of companies, Tidal Gaming is one that is dealing in the team side of things, and they actually own some big known teams in well-known games and have a model there that makes some sense because they have the ability to bring in big name sponsors for big money. As you get further down the chain, that rolls right out to zero. To me, hosting the games is the important thing. I've spent a lot of time with my kids playing games, watching games, and server outages are the biggest problem in the entire area. Because we've built this internet that is mostly one way, right? You tell Netflix what movie you want to watch, it sends you the movie. It doesn't require you to send a movie back. Right. Video games, if we're going to have the Netflix of video games, you require the game to be going back and forth, and we don't have the structure to do that yet. Sure. So there are some companies out there that are starting to plan the next iteration of the internet. On mobile, 5G technology is coming, but it's going to be a battle over 5 years. On the other side, a company that I've been working with for about 1.5 years, this is our first company that we've helped go public. There's a company called Amped Gaming Technologies. Right. Vashni Capital just raised $4 million for them. They're going public in March. And their whole thing is we're going to build small data centers instead of massive ones. And those data centers, the heat that comes from them, we can put them in the ground floor of a condo development, and the heat will heat the building. And the condensation of the air conditioning units on the servers creates clean drinking water for the building. So the cost of actually maintaining those servers is offset by those things. Wow. And you can actually get the data centers to a place where there might be 50 of them in a city, as opposed to one in Iceland.
If you're playing a game and you're sending your thing out to Iceland, you're waiting for it to come back, like that's when you have problems in the games.
The infrastructure of esports.
Infrastructure of esports. No one talks about infrastructure anywhere.
Nobody had even ever told me about that.
Who's doing the infrastructure of cannabis? Nobody, that's who.
We're going to leave it there right now. My next guest is here. Chris, it was great to see you again. We're going to have to catch up with you at the end of the day after the show, maybe at the Pravda event tonight.
The last time I went drinking with you, it was not a good scene. So I don't know.
You became a legend that night.
Yeah, I did, for all the wrong reasons. People still tell me what I did that night. I'm like,
you bet.
Oh my God, James
We're going to take a minute and talk about what's coming up on the show tomorrow. So tomorrow we've got Vinay Tolia is going to be here he's the CEO of Flower Corporation. Neil Murata is going to be here from Endiva. He's the CEO of Endiva. And then Manash Kestenbaum is going to be here once again from Enthusiast Gaming. He's been here a couple of times before, or no, once before. And let's see, what else can I tell you about tomorrow that's not well known? Well, there's going to be a couple of surprises. That's all I can tell you. But now, without further ado, I have Robert Galarza here with me. He is the CEO of BLOCKStrain Technology. Robert, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Robert. So I actually caught a couple of seconds of your speech at Cantech, and then I had some guy walk up to me and start just yammering in my ear, and I was like, no, I want to hear this, but I was lost because of my unfortunate social proclivities.
It happens. When you're popular, it happens. It's not a problem.
Well, I think it's more due to infamy at that point. So, Robert, tell me a bit about BLOCKStrain Technology. What does it do?
Yeah, I mean, really at the core, we're like the 23andMe for the cannabis industry. So we have an extensive background in the space. We've been in it for 8 years on the tech side, California-based initially, and we moved right up to Canada in 2015. We've been a part of the crazy boom there, and then the crazy boom here. Really, at the core, we understood that testing and integrity of the product was consistently an issue we were running into, right? How can you really track and trace? How can you really find your cannabis, right? You know, the concept behind the weed maps.
Speaking about a subject that is near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, unless you know what it is, right? So the great part about technology and science is advanced. Genomics really advanced over the past few years. So we were able to marry genomics, science with technology and integrate blockchain specifically from the immutability perspective, right? I mean, really focusing in areas where integrity is an issue, and testing it's an issue, and product identity is an issue. Strain names, the old street names, kind of need to change and evolve away from not necessarily we want to get rid of strain names.
Granddaddy Perps.
You just need to know that Granddaddy Perps is actually Granddaddy Perps, and that's really what our mission's been.
Okay, so how do you insert biomarkers into the plants at the growing level, or how do you establish an identity for a plant?
Yeah, it's actually a lot simpler than that. I mean, we've seen a lot of these platforms come online, or companies discussing, putting bio, markers and trackers and stuff in your cannabis. And I think I'm always one of those where I'm like, we just started as an industry. Before we start franken cannabising this thing up, let's maybe start to understand what we currently have. The beautiful part is genomics allow us to do a whole genome sequence, full identification of what that genetic strain is, right? Because so with cannabis, you have mother plants, and then the lineage of that mother is supposed to be what is created, right? From a kind of clone-based infrastructure. Obviously you can grow from seeds, but then you're getting brothers and sisters, and we all know brothers and sisters are very different from one another. Some are good, some are bad, and
especially when they breed together.
Exactly, that gets really weird. So what we really try to focus on more than anything else is saying, look, we have the tools right now to be able to say, if these are the 10 or 20 or 30 strains with which you're propagating and growing, we can identify those. And then beyond that, we can implement rapid genetic verification tests, right? So now when you're testing for chemistry, microbial, pesticide screenings, which we also are empowering laboratories to do rapidly and quickly, we can take all that testing data, all that validation data, and put it into, the blockchain there for immutability, but really push it into track and trace systems so that we're really, at the end of the day, providing a QR code for consumers to say, hey, look, this has been tested, it's valid, it's been screened, and genetically it's what it's supposed to be. And that's, for people like myself who love the industry and have been a part of it for so long, we don't want to see commoditization. I will gladly buy $20 grams of cannabis, gladly, if I know what it is. Right? I just want to know it's going to be consistent. I want to know it's going to make me feel a certain way.
Right. Well, that's fascinating. So you're able to identify the plants genetically and follow and deliver a test result to a consumer so that the consumer can be 100% certain that this is the exact same strain that they got the last time.
Exactly.
This is really important, and I know it's important because I interviewed at length a cancer patient in California whose medicine had stopped working despite the fact that it was the same strain. And the chemist who was brought in to analyze what was going on and figure out why this strain had suddenly stopped working realized that there had been a genetic mutation due to a biological contamination that caused the strain to mutate somehow, some way. And there was one of the myriad CBDs or cannabidiols or THC elements that had become absent. And it turned out to be the one thing that needed to be there for the entire entourage effect that was causing some cancer regression, I guess, to be effective. So he suddenly found himself in a position where now he wants to measure all the cannabis that comes through his sort of universe to ensure that this is exactly got everything he needs in it. He's not wasting his time and his life counting on something that maybe doesn't work.
And that's a heavy burden to place upon consumers and patients, right? I mean, it should be incumbent upon us in the industry. You know, we have the resources, we have the capabilities with which to do this right now. And really, you know, the nice part for as a business, we've met with growers and they want to understand, right? You don't want to be able to say, look, I've been growing the same strain for 5 years. Why is it changing, right? And that's the one thing that we, you know, don't really tackle as much in the industry, right, is that none of these cannabis strains genetically have a history in Canada, right? So now when we say, okay, well, now we're going to grow them in a greenhouse in Ontario, that's good, all good and well, but they have a, you know, 10,000 years or 20,000 years of genetic predisposition to certain things around the environment with which they grew up in. I mean, cannabis plants have, the genome is a third the size of the human genome. So they are very unique plants in that way. And so because of those characteristics, if we can analyze them over a period of time, you know, part of our value that we want to add to our customers is providing that genetic data back so that they can really be empowered by it, right? And be able to say, look, you know, wow, you know what, I'm studying my genetic library, here's the distribution, here's the supply chain aspect of it. But you know what, over 3 to 5 years, you know, these clones that we're mothering out, we keep genetically testing them and we're finding genetic markers that are, you know, evolving or changing or not being as receptive because maybe the epigenetics associated with those plants could be changing and evolving as well. That was a scary thing I actually heard today on a podcast where they said it's not really our genetics that are causing our problems in aging, it's our epigenetics. It's like the CD player doesn't read the CD as well, and then I just turned 40, so I'm like, oh, where's that CD? where am I? Okay. Where am I on that scale?
Yeah, no doubt. So what is epigenetics?
From what I understand, and again, I'm not a geneticist, so this is a little bit out of my wheelhouse, but from what I understand, it is the ability of the organism to be able to respond to the actual DNA, right? And when you're younger, you're able to read it better than as you get older, and that could be very similar in cannabis, but it's affected by various environmental things. So in human beings, they say X-rays is something you shouldn't be doing because it has a significantly horrible effect on your epigenetic makeup, right? So with cannabis strains, like maybe certain lighting, maybe certain environmental factors, but how can we really know that unless we start to, you know, index it and really start to, you know, create a real registry where we can really understand it?
Yeah. I had the experience while growing cannabis from clones, was the default route for a couple of decades, that a mother that was a particularly reliable producer and prolific producer, meaning that it just kept getting bushier and bushier and more cloning points, we found that over time that the strains were the clones, after a couple of years of taking clones from the same mother, were starting to exhibit undesirable characteristics. And so ultimately, even our favorite mothers ultimately had to be put to death unceremoniously, and we had to regenerate the strain from seed, which of course, because we've been breeding you know, plants with no seeds, we had to go get the seeds, and invariably we're finding ourselves incapable of reproducing the same phenotype. So when I hear about all these cannabis producers saying that this is going to be phenotype and so genetically identical to its previous, you know, plant or origin source, I think to myself, well, unless you know something that 20 years of growing this stuff didn't teach me, then good luck with that. But I think there's going to be a problem here. And I think that, you know, much like cloning or any kind of reproductive process that relies on the same source over time, you're just going to get variation as a result of natural mutation, inclination, other aspects like that. So I think it's really important, especially for those who are relying on a certain medical combination of CBD, THC from a plant, to be able to identify that, to be able to carry that and make it immutable, I think is a service to the industry that probably is going to be very much a part of it as it evolves. So tell me, how do you make money?
So part of being a software company, there's two routes you can always take, right? Which is come in, try to sell your services, hard costs up front, or you can basically implement yourself as a part of the transaction.
Right.
We just chose the latter. We come into our production partners, we provide the software for free, lab partners same way, but we make money on the testing. So as testing moves through, we coined ourselves the Expedia of the testing world. We want to be able to come in, onboard as many laboratories from both a genetic perspective and a chemistry and microbial and pesticide screening perspective, figure out who's running the most efficiently, be able to push as much product as we can through those pipes, because that's the other side of the bottleneck of the industry too, right? How do we get all this product through? But there was a huge scathing study that just came out in Oregon today. The Secretary of State's basically like, our medical program is failing, abject failure, because of a lot of the cannabis is not being screened for heavy metals, right? And so the testing is a really difficult thing. And then diversion is an incredibly difficult thing that they're trying to combat down there in California and Washington as well. Mm-hmm. Well, how in the world do you even distinguish between black market product and green market product unless you can identify the two, right? So the concept of a registry that Health Canada discusses and that we're definitely pushing behind is you've got to, whether it's through us or partners like ours, you've got to be able to create that registry from a genetics perspective. You have to make it actionable, right? And so we've tried to do that from a private perspective first, like allow the stakeholders themselves to come in and say, look, I'm buying product from other LPs, right? I want to know that I'm getting what I pay for, even at this non-commercial level of the retail.
Sure.
So then I can really put a stamp on it and say, look, consumers, this is what it is at the end of the day from a sales perspective.
Interesting. So cool. All right, Robert, we're going to leave it there for now. We're going to follow this story closely because I'm really interested in what you're doing. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Fraser was at the Cantech conference yesterday, and he talked to the CEO of YDX Innovation, and here's what happened.
Hey there, I'm with Daniel Japiasu, who is the CEO of YDX. Why don't you give us an overview on what your company is all about?
Sure. YDX is a holding company. We're trading at TSXV, our symbol is YDX. We have 3 divisions or companies that we run. Y-Dreams is the original one. It's been around for 12 years. We deliver very high-end brand experiences. We work to companies like Coca-Cola, NBA, Disney, delivering interactive experiences for them. Arcade, it's what we have here, is a VR gaming platform. Basically, we're selling this to family entertainment centers like bowling alleys, laser tags, trampoline parks, theme parks. It's one of the best and most immersive VR experiences in the world. And then now we're also here in this event launching Game On Festival, which is our new product for 2019. It's an esports festival event. It comes to town, says 1 month with you, and then the population can see an exhibition about the history of video games. We're being very busy.
Yeah, no, it sounds like lots going on. I can see people gaming over there looking like they're looking into the stars and stuff. So how is this monetized versus sort of traditional gaming? What does that revenue picture look like for you guys?
Yeah, for us it's a great model because we don't have to operate. So we're selling this. Let's say you have a bowling alley and you need some new attractions to bring new cash, right? So between games, people can play this. So we sell them for about $80,000, and then we charge them a subscription. So every month they have to pay a flat fee. So it doesn't matter if they sell 100 tickets or 50 or 1,000. They'll pay us the same rate. So it's great for them.
And when did you launch this, and how much of an impact do you expect to have on the balance sheet with it?
Oh, absolutely. We have very high expectations in terms of sales and added revenue to the company. We launched this officially for North America in last November at IAAPA. IAAPA is the biggest event for amusement parks and family entertainment centers. We closed a couple deals on the spot, opened the first arena in the US before Christmas. So it was a very quick sale. Opened the second one in Miami right after New Year's. So it's starting to sell well, and really so the company has an average of 2 million in revenues. We had years, peak years, so we really think this can be the future of the company in terms of growth.
Woo! Yeah, crazy stuff. Pointing at the sky with a blindfold on. I want to try that. Joining me right now is Anthony Durkacz, co-chairman of FSD Pharma. Anthony, welcome back.
Thank you so much, James.
Anthony, I was very interested to get you on because we have this new culture that has come up around the cannabis industry, and it's the culture of, I'm going to categorize it as idiot analysts who don't know anything, taking pot shots at companies that are doing a lot and then making a quick score when they push the stock price down, moving on, and then the companies are revealed to have none of the problems stipulated by the analysts. And we've got just one such has taken a new shot of drawing a bead on FSD Pharma. And everything that I've looked at about this guy, first, I've never heard of him. He's got a Seeking Alpha profile, which Seeking Alpha is notorious for. It's the land of the undisclosed paid pumper dumper. It's the land of the undisclosed run and gun short seller. So, quickly, what were the points this guy was trying to make? The criticism about FSD Pharma, and what is the reality?
Sure. So, and it is here.
Okay.
And I think one of the reasons why I want to talk about it is just to make sure that I think every investor should be very, very cautious about what they read. And if something is too positive or something is too negative, you really want to make sure that you get other people or trusted opinions from other people, like your financial advisor and accountant, stuff like that. Yeah. But in this case, they talked about I have a track record of average loss of 92% over 11 stocks. In that article, I actually had my analysts run our numbers. So if you did look at the very high it ever hit and then the lowest it hit, could it be 92% down? That's true, but also if you looked at where we financed it and those 11 deals and their highs that they achieved after they were financed, that was a 2,600% gain.
Right.
So the truth is going to lie in the middle of that.
Absolutely.
And so I think anyone that's going to go, again, if it's too positive, that's typically people pumping or longs that have a reason.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're doing that to sell their position.
Sure.
It's the same way as a short seller would do when they've already sold short, and then they come out with these articles hoping to scare the average retail investor, which is really despicable in so many ways. And then that poor average retail investor panics, sells at a low price to that short to cover.
Let me ask you this. What kind of idiot goes short on a 32-cent stock in the first place?
It's a good question. So in the case of FSD Pharma, we are asset rich.
Right.
We have no debt, right? We are going to be alive for years no matter what.
Right.
We have great things in the pipeline. And so what's your maximum amount you can make is 32 cents to the downside, but we're asset rich. That's not ever going to be an issue. It's not ever going to go there.
Yeah.
But their upside is unlimited. Mm-hmm. So if you're shorting a $100 stock, yes, is there a lot of room to go down? There's $100 per share to go down. In this case, it's 32 cents per share to go down at your best.
Exactly. Well, I found the whole thing ridiculous, especially in the context of the last few short reports that came out. Like, so for example, Andrew Left of Citron Research has almost zero credibility based on the fact that he told everybody to sell Cronos because there was no business there. Cronos is $24 today, just got $2.6 billion from Altria.
Correct.
He told everybody to sell Aphria. Aphria had no business. It was and actually, did he say, was he the one on Aphria? I can't remember that exactly. But anyways, I tracked a few of his picks. I found that he was right for a very short period of time on a couple, but not that it would have been any big win for anybody. And so I just, every time I get a new report from him, I just kind of laugh and say, okay, let's see what where this guy, what rake this guy's going to step on now. So,
and also, I guess, well, you know, the risk with shorts is that if you get caught on the wrong side and all of a sudden, say, like a stock has very good news coming out, or it gets halted and you can't cover that position in a halt,
right,
and you get gapped up, you know, you can lose that entire fund. You know, that's the interesting part of it is they can do well in short bursts, but when they get caught on the wrong side, those are massive, massive losses.
In Canada and the United States, we have very tough, arguably strict rules about misleading investors. Publishing information that is considered misleading to induce them to buy stock based on something that may or may not happen.
Yes.
Do you think that the law is currently governing what you're allowed to say about a negative of the company is proportionate to what can and can't be said that's positive about a company, or do you think that we need to revisit the idea of misrepresenting facts to the downside and apply the same standard?
100% we have to.
Yeah.
Because, you know, these types of articles, and in this case, you know, the author has a series of other articles that are all extremely negative, but, you know, are completely misleading. In a number of cases here are libel. You know, the challenge is that, you know, the author and these companies, you know, they reside in Colombia. So for us to go and chase them for libel realistically is going to do what for anybody is not really that much of a time factor. But when you look at the commissions, for example, and you look at disclosures, when anyone writes, whether it's positive or negative, you know, they should be disclosing, well, how much are you positive or negative, and when, and at what price, right? So if you're an author of anything, it's whoever you're doing it for, when did you buy or sell that stock, and at what price, and how much? You know, and those types of disclosures should be prevalent where the reader sees it, not at the very bottom of the article, but at the very top.
Sure, that's a good idea. Now, tell us what are the catalysts in 2019 that we can look for FSD Pharma that are going to take the stock in the other direction?
So, you know, I will never comment on share price ever. What I'm very, very excited about is our move to the U.S., to NYSE. You know, we're going to pivot into this very focused medicinal biotechnology side of the cannabis world. You know, being a cancer survivor myself, I have sort of a real soft spot for this sort of new frontier in medicine that's about to unveil. And we're seeing, you know, in Canada, the money isn't the same. Investment money isn't the same that it was a year ago in the cannabis sector. In the USA and in other countries, you know, we're beginning to see what we were seeing here about 2.5 years ago. And it's just beginning. And I think that in those markets, you know, it's, as we all know, there's just so much more money.
Yeah.
You know,
so FSD Pharma is pivoting full bore towards biotechnology research?
75 to 80%. It's going to pivot. The rest will be operational. So we you know, are in the middle of building. We are growing. We're cultivating. And we believe we're very, very close to the sales license. And, you know, the idea is that here in Canada, we're going to have an operating business that's going to be profitable over the next 18 months.
Now, you had at your facility, you had several other businesses that were all sort of starting to generate a very interdependent sort of relationship to each other, where it was like, oh, this now makes sense. Instead of trucking this A to B, it's just like, no, we'll take a conveyor belt or a wheelbarrow and just take it across the parking lot.
So
is that still part of the strategy at the FSD plant?
100%. So it's still part of the strategy. Cantab is building. World-class Extractions is building. We will make another announcement, I would say, shortly on something similar. And we're also exploring, because we have so much room and space, some of the value-added areas. We're getting approached by a lot of edibles companies, you know, that I think see the former craft plant as probably being a good place to
make cookies,
commercial edibles.
Because you do get the munchies when you're high. Okay, so then FSD Pharma is moving towards a New York Stock Exchange listing?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
And when do you anticipate that happening?
It will happen within the next 2 quarters.
Really?
Yes.
Well, that's fantastic. Okay, well, we're going to leave it there for now. Anthony, I really appreciate the update, and we'll keep following the story. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, James, for giving me your time.
Of course. Now, time for some education.
Earth Ed. Wake up, Ed. We're gradually going to put ourselves on a path to extinction. There's no doubt in my mind. I've read a book about living in the moment, and if we can all look at each other as if we're looking at ourselves and saying, I'm looking at myself. You are me, I am you. We are all in this together, and we live in the moment, you know, and we try to help each other. In fact, you could argue, if you believe in evolution, we're all connected. We're all connected. A blade of grass has life in it when it's rooted, right? Look at your cat, look at your dog. So we have to get back into that, you know, we're all connected. Earth Dad, wake up, Ed. Look at this. Who's the
boy, Ed? You let them draw a cartoon of you like that. That was fantastic.
That's when I'm, you know, when you're in a really good mood. When I'm trying to.
You look like you were high there.
Glean information from the universe.
Yeah. I wanted to, you know, you had a great show while I was gone. You had me in stitches. The short people out there, and I'm not talking in terms of stature, but the ones who like to buy low and sell lower, or sell, no, I guess it's sell low and buy lower.
Sell high and buy lower.
Sell high and buy lower.
Yeah, because you're selling to buy lower.
But you don't go short on a stock necessarily that's on a tear.
Well, you wait to see a bobble, or you wait for
a bobble. Not a bangle?
A bobble.
A bobble.
Like a bobblehead. You see? Hey there, it's time to short.
You don't have to talk to me like that. No, I'm just kidding. What? Have you seen some people in East India, they talk to you like this? I think that's great. I wish we talked like that. It would put a smile on my face, even if somebody's giving me shit.
You're always
You
smiling.
cannot park there, you son of a bitch. Get out of here. Well, come on. I mean, we got to take our...
Wait a minute.
Ed, the recommendation from the Lord of the Skies is that you pop your earpiece in so he can give you royal shit when you slouch, fart, or otherwise don't quite live up to the high standards of showmanship we're trying to cultivate.
I was snoozing there in the other room, and then, much to my chagrin.
Now, I'd like to point out Kronos Group, 2448. What were we saying? What were you saying about Kronos Group? It's going higher.
It looks higher. Now, I just see it go across at 2418.
Yeah.
The HMMJ, the big
one of the big
ETFs,
the Canadian one,
is only up modestly. Like even though there's a big Dow's up 400, the S&P's up huge.
Yeah.
The marijuana sector seems to be not participating fully. And if you look, and we can look at a number of them.
Okay.
Aphria is not up much.
Aphria, this is interesting. Aphria is up.
Aphria.
And
yeah, I know.
And GGB is down.
Yes. And Aurora's down too, I think.
Well, but I mean, everybody's watching Aphria and GGB because if those stocks diverge in price,
let's put up your index. Let's put up your index.
Well, you put up my index. I only have my iPad today.
Really?
I've had my main machine taken away.
Did you lose it in Miami?
No, it's in the other room.
It's at customs probably.
No. Actually, so I went to the airport on Friday. And, it was empty. I would have thought there would have been an absolute exodus of people leaving for southern climes, knowing what was coming this weekend. Anyways, it was empty. Like, seriously, I got to U.S. Customs, there was nobody. So I thought, well, we're in no hurry. I'll shoot the shit with the U.S. Customs officer, try to make him laugh, put a smile on his face. What does he do? He gets all offended, thinks I'm making some joke, trying to be smart, trying to be, put one over on him. Secondary inspection, U.S. Customs and Border Patrol.
You know what? You don't joke. James.
Friendly. He was friendly. I was friendly.
There's no friends. There's no friends. Hey, buddy, what do you got in your pocket?
I just keep hoping that, the pricks of the world don't work for the government at the border. Anyways, what happens is they put me in secondary inspection. There's 3 of them in there. There's me and one other guy. The other guy's name is Dimitri, strangely enough. Obviously, he's going to get a hard time just for being named Dimitri. I'm sitting there. They don't acknowledge either one of us for 40 minutes.
Oh, that's just to piss you off.
Well, and I'm just like, what kind of buffoons are you?
You should have said that right there and there. You should have said.
Yeah, I was already not feeling too good about my choices of being friendly.
Now, what did you say? What was your comment that sort of got them a little? Oh yeah, smart ass here.
He asked me what I did for a living. I said I had a media channel. He said, yeah, what kind of media? I said, I'm a YouTuber. And he just looked at me as if I had to be full of shit or I was making a joke. And I wasn't smiling at that point because it's like, yeah, at age 55, I'm a fucking YouTuber.
Yeah.
Half of the kids in my family are dead jealous of me. Tell me how many adults the kids in your universe are jealous of. None. They pretty much wish we'd all just get out of the way, leave our money and cars behind, and let them show us how it's done.
Yeah.
But no, not my family. My kids are like, my uncle's a YouTuber. So it's like, I don't know. I've reached this weird sort of place in adulthood that
I choose my words very carefully. I don't try to be a millennial, for instance.
Right. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah. Hey, who's this guy think he is, a millennial?
Right. This old fart coming across like I'm a YouTuber.
You should have said, yeah, I like to use rotary phones. What?
I like to use rotary phones and go to church and drink milk. Now then he'd also take one look at me. I'd be saying that with a smile.
You know,
on my
if
face,
you think about, okay, you bring up milk. I mean, think about the insanity of drinking milk.
You know, milk, I used to get high and drink 3 liters of milk and eat a box of graham wafers. That was my go-to when I was like in my teenage years.
Smart choice.
Well, but look at me now. Look at me now. Nothing wrong? Healthy? Arguably sane?
You know, I gotta believe when if society can, evolve going forward and get rid of a lot of the shit that's going on here, like
cows,
like Diet Pepsi and all that stuff. I'm not,
Sounds like you're bringing up your prejudice against cows again.
No.
Like you were saying that cows and geese eat the same thing, and that's grass, so shouldn't they look the same? Well, how many kids,
we smell grass and we don't look like cows.
But we sound the same.
Moo.
We start to,
I contend that, the life of the forager 50,000 years ago is really the life that we should subscribe to, and we don't.
Well, I do.
You're a Bay Street multimedia YouTuber.
I'm an opportunistic forager on Bay Street. That's all.
Yeah.
The grass has all been paved over. Now I pound the pavement and go look for opportunities in the skyscrapers they built.
Mm-hmm. What's that?
The skyscrapers, the tall buildings. No.
What, wax on? What? No, paint on, paid off. Wait up.
Fraser spoke to the CEO of a very, very cool company which makes technology that can detect machine threats like guns and bombs. And oh, by the way, I am a shareholder.
Well, my name is Martin Cronin from Patriot One Technologies, and we're in the business of public safety through threat detection. We were set up to commercialize an innovative technology out of McMaster University called cognitive microwave radar. So that's combining low-powered radar with machine learning to detect concealed threats, guns, knives, bombs, when people are entering a building. Since our inception, we've expanded what we do, and we're now bringing forward some of the best other innovations in the space. We announced shortly before Christmas the acquisition of AI in New Brunswick, a really innovative company in video recognition where we can detect and tag weapons in open view. And just this morning we announced a joint venture called SOTEC for standoff detection of explosives and other chemicals, a technology out of the University of Texas in Dallas. So bit by bit what we're building is what we call a multi-sensor threat detection platform for public safety. What we have done is shrunk radar down into a really small package which could be deployed behind walls, ceiling panels, floor panels, into fixtures and fittings, and combine that with machine learning algorithms that can interpret that reflected signal in real time to determine the objects that are in the field of view. In a sense, the thing it's most similar to is airport security screening, where you are identifying any objects that people have that they shouldn't have, except that we're doing it in an unseen way without them being required to divest themselves of all the items. We're using smart systems that can filter out the cell phone, the keys, the belt buckle, the shoes, and just look for the objects which are a threat. And to do all of that in an unseen and covert way. Primarily, it's about saving lives. But on top of saving lives, it is about increasing the efficiency and maintaining a public consensus around enhanced security. Because all too often, the response to an attack is to layer on a lot of inconvenient measures, and then the public start to get concerned, frustrated. The security measures themselves can end up alienating the population. So if you can make that detection really unseen and allow the public to go about their lives, then you can maintain that consensus around enhanced security. This is going to be a really exciting year for us now. We've been, hard at it for a couple of years in development. We're now going into paid pilots. This year is where we roll out and we take this technology globally and we start to save lives.
Well, that's a very cool technology, and as I must disclose, and all things, I am a shareholder. They have been a client. I am a big supporter of Patriot One, but for obvious reasons, it's going to make a lot of people a lot of money. In my humble opinion. Just my opinion. Never mind that. Now, another guy who's possibly going to make a lot of people a lot of money is here. Chris Miller, the CEO of Koios Beverage Corp, has joined me in studio. Chris, welcome.
Thank you for the warm welcome in Toronto. It's balmy here.
That's all you get here. That's warm.
Yeah.
Warm welcomes and warm women.
Negative 40 degrees. Yeah.
Yeah. Negative 40 degrees. Well, that's kind of warm compared to where it was last night. Chris, Koios Beverages, based in Denver, Colorado.
Denver, Colorado, the Mile High City. Yeah.
How do you guys?
Where it's 50 degrees today.
15?
50.
50.
Yeah.
50 Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
Right. I have to do some math on that.
Yeah, right.
Which
The conversion.
I think it is about 15 degrees centigrade. What does Koios Beverages do? How do you make money?
We are one of the fastest and I always hesitate to say the best, but I'll say it, beverage companies in the U.S.
Okay.
We make nutritional beverages that enhance brain function, body function. We have a new product coming out this year called Fit Soda, which we're incredibly excited about. But yeah, that's what we do. We try to make our mission is to make 1 billion people live healthier lives.
Wow.
Or at least encourage them. We can't make them. That would be awkward.
Right.
We can strongly we can strongly encourage it.
Right. So I assume there's a cannabis component to this?
There is. I wouldn't call it cannabis. I'd call it CBD.
Right.
Our focus is more on CBD and infusing it into our beverages. I definitely think the CBD market will be bigger than the cannabis-infused market. And I always joke with folks that my mom will take CBDs, but she won't take cannabis. And so we're incredibly excited in the U.S. about infusing beverages, and especially our primary flagship beverage, which is a mental cognition product that creates natural focus. And so to be able to combine CBDs for, anxiety, to do both at the same time is kind of a home run. If I can stay focused and be calm all at once, that's what we're shooting for. And so
you bet. So you guys don't grow cannabis or produce CBDs yourselves?
No.
And you focus on the beverage industry. What's the history of Koios that would give an investor a high degree of confidence that you are the guys to actually take this through to the end zone?
Yeah. We just signed a national retail deal with GNC.
Okay.
We have the infrastructure in place right now that for your investors who aren't familiar with beverage, if you look up Celsius, they're on the NASDAQ. They went from 34 cents to $5 in 2 years. I think right now Koios has the infrastructure in place to hit those targets.
Right.
In fact, I think we're even further ahead than where Celsius was at the time.
So when you see a deal with GNC has stores in pretty much every mall in America and Canada.
They are worldwide. We are pushing hard. I know, is this the camera? We're pushing hard to get into Canada as quickly as possible. GNC being one of our retail partners, you'll be able to find that product.
Right. They're still running your B-roll.
Sorry.
That's all good. So, are you in a position where you can produce sufficient product to supply a GNC?
Yeah, no, that's always an issue. Anytime you're a CPG company like us, production is hard, and it's been fun to watch. The rumor mill, the talk in the drink space about putting out CBD beverages. I think a lot of companies are going to struggle with production. One of the things that makes Koios Beverage Corp unique is that we have our own production lines in Denver that allow us to not only small batch but innovate. So a lot of guys have tried to come out with CBD products. They're going to run into some issues in terms of how it's made, shelf life, taste, that sort of thing.
Right.
We have our own lines that can do up to 8,000 cases a day, and we have 2 of them. And so we're fairly unique that way. It allows us to stay incredibly nimble. Instead of co-packing, spending $2 million at a time to make product.
Right.
We don't have to do that.
Okay, so is it conceivable that this might be a future takeout for like a Pepsi or
100%, yeah.
And is that what you're kind of thinking of, building a lifestyle branded beverage line, CBD driven, that would be of interest to a larger?
Yeah, no, one of our board of directors members is the global director of Molson Coors.
Oh, okay.
And so it's interesting. I meet with him once a week just to, I think it's more therapy than anything.
Okay.
It's more of a, because he's in that space and he understands it, but it's interesting to know those guys and know how much beer's even struggling. Some of your listeners who know cannabis probably know that too.
Yeah.
But even they're pushing hard for the non-alcoholic side, even and non-psychoactive.
Right.
That they're sweeping trends from Europe coming across the pond that are. Some people don't even want to get high; they just want to relax or be more calm.
Idiots. Sorry.
Yeah.
Really?
What? Yeah. I gotta go. Are we done? Yeah. No. So.
Don't want to get high.
I think one of the things 3 years ago that I noticed was not only Coca-Cola, Pepsi, some of these Dr. Pepper. Constellations of the world, but the big ones, Molson Coors, Budweiser, they're looking for takeouts in the functional beverage space too. In fact, Budweiser bought Highball Energy in the States in a huge buyout, which kind of shows you where that trend is headed.
You bet. For 2019, where are your big catalysts going to be that your investors are going to get all excited about?
GNC and we have some. We're working on huge retail infrastructure right now. So in 2019, I would anticipate, and this is obviously we just put some of this out in our financials, but 2019 we're anticipating over 5,000 locations, and in 2020 we're expecting close to 10,000. So if you do the rough math on that, it adds up quick.
So you're going to build bottling and distribution plants around the country. How do you service such a large footprint?
Yeah. So our canning lines again in Denver can do 8,000 cases a week. So if you run the numbers on that, it's fairly large. Once we get to those bigger numbers, we'll use co-packing facilities around the U.S. and Canada to fulfill that need.
Okay.
What's unique about us is that most beverage companies jump to that second spot.
Okay.
They go to big co-packers first, spend a lot of money on product and inventory, and don't have a lot of extra cash for marketing, promotion.
Right. And then they got to sell it.
Right.
A little cart before a horse there.
Right. So I spent 5 years in the beverage business building this before we went public.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I have PTSD as a result.
Okay.
Because of making those mistakes. I have a lot of scar tissue from doing it the other way. So we built out our own facilities that are GMP certified to be able to be more flexible, to produce our own product, to kind of do whatever we want. If one flavor is not working, we can immediately shelve it, put out another one.
Okay, interesting. Chris, we're going to have to leave it there because we're running out of time, but it's a really interesting story, and I am super intrigued with the beverage space, and I'm wondering who's going to be the industry leader. But thanks for joining me. We'll follow the Cliff story closely and have you back soon.
Yeah, good to be here. Thank you.
You bet. All right, coming up next, we're going to take a look at some of the cannabis updates we expect this month, and I'm talking financial here. Aurora Cannabis financials Q2 due out on February 12th. 2019. Cam Batley will be in studio to discuss those financial results either day of or day after. Neptune Wellness financials out Q3, or the Q3 financials rather, will be out February 13th, and we will have Jim Hamilton either in studio or via Skype to discuss those financials. Canopy Growth Corporation, symbol weed on the CGC, the granddaddy of all cannabis companies, puts out their Q3 financials on February 14th, Valentine's Day. Bruce Linton will be in studio. He will not be via Skype because he hates doing things via Skype. He will be in studio day of or day after to discuss. Supreme Cannabis financials, Q2 out on March the 1st. Not John Fowler, but the new president, Nab Dhaliwal, I believe, will be here to discuss that day of or day after. And Canopy Rivers, just down the street from us here on the beautiful economic center of the universe in Canada. Q3 financials coming out March 1st, 2019. And we are going to have them here to discuss those financials day of or day after. Because that's what we do.
Yeah, this show went by like that. I don't recall very much.
You know what? I think we had more guests on this show than we've ever had on any other show in the 90-minute time frame. And it was largely a function of me running into some old friends down at the Cantech conference, Chris Parry, Jesse Dillon. And I would have had Martin or Jeff, well, I would have had Martin Cronin on from Patriot today, but then I found that Fraser went down to the conference yesterday and beat me to it.
Wow. Yeah. Beat you.
Beat me to it. Beat me to a pulp. Now, Ed, I want to talk about your drinking problem.
My drinking problem?
Yeah.
I've been on the wagon.
Well, that's a problem.
Who you been talking to?
Nobody. I haven't been talking to anybody. Why? Have you been on the wagon or have you not been on the wagon?
I had a little
nip?
Little run-in with one of your buddies last night.
One of my buddies?
Yeah, we had a little bust-up.
What happened? This is not for on-air consumption?
No.
See, now we've got to go for a beer and you can tell me about it afterwards.
Well, we're probably going to go to a party later, too.
The one at Probda tonight.
It's my... You know what? You know how kids go potty?
Yeah.
You know what they say?
No.
It's my potty and I'll cry if I want to.
Oh my gosh. Are you kidding me? That's kind of hilarious, but
it's
not really.
It's my potty.
You know, I've been wanting to talk to and at least acknowledge some of the 230 people watching on live now, coming from all over the world. Most of these people are regulars. The comment list is moving so fast I can't even keep up, actually. So there's zero. I saw a guy named Johnny go by. Troy Smith, James Watson, Mary Kemp, James Marshall, Carl Boyden. Hey, you guys are woo!
You know what?
Fully aware one. Carl is gay.
Just say Larry, Moe, and Curly.
What the hell? Larry, Moe, and Curly. Carl, if you're gay, call me. No, just kidding. Cooter 8635. Haven't seen your face here before.
Cooter
8635. Welcome to the show. You bet we're informative, very factual, less babble. Less babble?
Tower of the Babel. No, the Tower of Babel.
Tower of Babel. You know, the show went by so quickly we didn't really get to
I don't even feel like I was on today.
Tomorrow. It'd be great.
It would have been a great day.
What's happening tomorrow? Vinay Tolia is going to be here from Flower. Neil Murata, the Indiva CEO, is going to be here, and Manash Kestenbaum will be here from Enthusiast Gaming, as he's the CEO of that. My iPad is down to 5%. My thirst level is at 90%. Systems are shutting down rapidly. Hey, what's up? Drum solo, please. There you go.
The synapses in my brain are firing about 5%.
There we go. Let's see, who else of our regulars here? Hi, Mary Kemp. Good to see you. She's always visiting us.
Oh, she sends us gifts all the time. Haven't seen a gift in a while.
Where's our gift? Yeah. Was that from Mary Kemp?
Yeah, it was.
That's right. That was very nice of you, Mary. We will always love you. We want to meet you in person. We hope you live in the area.
Yeah, come by,
if not, tell us where you live and we'll come and get more gifts or bring gifts of our own. Let's see here. What else? Troy Smith is here. I see his name all the time. Troy, welcome to the show and thank you very much. Ivan Black, always got some great comments. Heinrich Skolblum. Henrik Skolblum. No, actually I have a friend out on the West Coast. He's actually the guy I go fishing with all the time. When I go out there.
Was that Huckleberry Finn?
No. His name is Cedric Skolblum. But Cedric always catches fish. That's why I go fishing with Cedric. I don't really like fishing, but I love catching fish. And that's why I go with Cedric.
Hard to catch fish if you're not fishing.
Impossible to catch fish if you're not fishing. It's like you cannot win a lottery.
You know, if you're playing golf and you don't know who the fish are when you're on the first tee.
You're the fish.
You're the fish.
I've heard that before somewhere.
Yeah.
Anyway, so wraps up our show for today, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with more fantastic guests, more great cannabis opportunities, and maybe some money ones too. Don't get bored. There's going to be a commodity market soon. We'll see you tomorrow.